Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
And welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen History Month, the month in which we discuss the contributions that geeky gentlemen have made to history, but that have been ignored by its educational system. And I want to kick myself because I didn't use that joke at all in our opening week of History Month. I'm sorry, I let you guys down, but more importantly, I let myself down. Anyway, joining me today is the real Manos.
Hello, folks. I will not let you down today.
Yay. And today we're going to be discussing a God of War fan film. This is called God of War Ryse of the Sun, live action film. And so God of War is one of my favorite video game franchises. I've been in love with it since the very first game. Though, because I really did fall off on video games quite a bit, I never got a PS4, and so I've never played God of War 4, which this is a direct production of or spin-off of. The only reason I know that is because I recognize the axe being used from a lot of little bits and pieces of gameplay I've seen from it. So this was kind of a bit of an unknown thing for me as well. But I've been looking for a God of War fan film for quite a while, and just nothing ever really came of it, so I was really interested to see what we'd get here. Manos, how familiar are you with the God of War franchise?
What's God of War?
Exactly, okay. Yeah, Manos isn't into video games at all, so I'm only tangentially connected to this, based on what exactly it's a fan film of, and Manos has no idea what's going on.
I know it's a video game franchise. He's got a beard and tattoos, and that's it. That's all I know about it.
And see, you're not wrong, but you're definitely not right. So God of War is a series that's mainly followed, or has followed, a guy by the name of Kratos. He was a Spartan soldier in Greece, ancient Greece. And the first 3 games and the spin-off prequels and everything, everything in the franchise has revolved around Kratos in ancient Greece, yes. Fucking around with the ancient Greek gods. You fight Zeus in the second game, and in the third game you work your way up Mount Olympus and you're killing all the gods.
Yeah.
And then God of War seemed to be done pretty much after 3. There was still some stuff that came out, but it was all prequel stuff, and it was more just to, keep the franchise going than it was anything even kind of related to a story. And then after the events of Logan, I believe the writer-director has said after Logan, he was inspired to write God of War 4. And God of War 4 has this huge time jump in it, and it's dealing with Kratos, and now he has a son who's a very small boy, and he calls him boy throughout the entire game, from what I understand. That's the meme, at least. Huh. And in that game, you're dealing with the Norse gods, the Norse pantheon. So that's just my general knowledge on the world of God of War by the time we get to the 4th game. This fan film seems to incorporate a time skip of its own, because here, the implication we get by the end of this and everything, we're following Kratos' son in this fan film in particular, which I thought was kind of an interesting idea and a way to get away with, putting someone on film and not having them have to look like Kratos, who has a very particular look. He's got this pale, chalky white skin and this, big red tattoo going all over his body. It'd be a hard thing to kind of pull off. on film and have it look good without a ton of CGI. So it's kind of a smart decision, I feel, to try to shift focus, do a time skip, follow his son.
So this is his son, the guy with the Linda Belcher tattoo on his back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. All that being said, all the context you get, what did you think of this?
It's kind of boring.
I was afraid you'd come out that way. I mean, you're not wrong though. It is pretty much just an action-based fan film.
It had some impressive shots. The filmmaking technique is pretty solid, actually. The opening sweeping shot, I think, is gorgeous, and the effects with the axe is really good. But that's it. It was basically an MAA fight with some special effects. I was actually found myself checking Twitter a lot in this.
And I mean, it's only like a 12-minute fan film too.
Yeah,
right?
and I was bored like 3 minutes into it.
You know, the thing that I found interesting about it is it like opens and it's just so long before anything happens. He's just like kind of walking through the woods and stuff, and like you said, these big sweeping shots. And I didn't quite know what to make of that. And then I decided to actually watch some more God of War 4 playthrough. That's how the fourth game opens. You're kind of just like doing stuff that's relatively speaking mundane, but like it'll have the credits show up for like the first maybe 5-10 minutes of gameplay. And that's it. So it's really interesting to watch this because I do agree the fight scenes and everything are pretty well shot and everything. The reason I was able to find them more entertaining is they're visually mirroring the style of God of War gameplay. Because God of War is kind of infamous at this point because it really did become just a really annoying crutch of a lot of games. God of War is infamous for introducing what's called the quick time event style of gameplay. They weren't the very first ones to do it, but it's like their whole brand almost. And so it created a really cool, really cinematic style of gameplay where like you could never like script out that level of dynamic, really cool looking action for just the players to perfectly control. But you can animate it and have the success of it be dependent on the players reacting quickly enough to carry it through in a graceful way. And so it's a really cool visual style for gameplay, even if it is flawed, because you spend a lot of time just watching things instead of doing things. That being said, translating it to film, while it definitely looks cool, like you got that moment where everything kind of like slows down for a second, and there's like this bit of like hesitation that gives that punch, that extra punch. It does feel a little, I don't know, would you say meandery maybe?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, oh, they're still fighting. And hey, they're still fighting again. It's not even like an interesting fight. I mean, sure, that moment where he goes to punch him and he knocks a twig off the tree, that was pretty intense. But I don't know, it's just yeah, it just had a lot of trouble like holding my attention. I think this suffers from problems I've seen from other fan films that we've talked about. We've already had this discussion a bit, but I think it's at least worth bringing up here. Is like the filmmaking that I'm seeing on here is really good. You know, the lighting is beautiful. The sweeping shots are really nice. The effects are really good. But the script, there's just nothing. There's nothing about this. You're a God of War fan, so I see that you can kind of get into this a little bit and see what's going on. As someone who is not part of the fandom, it's not inviting at all. It's just like two guys hitting each other, and then the end.
Mm-hmm.
There's really nothing.
You know, and kind of what adds to it is, so like I said, I went through and I watched some footage of God of War 4, and this is not one-to-one because they just don't have the scale to be able to pull it off. This is basically the first boss fight of God of War 4, just translated with his son.
This guy is the Glass Joe of God of War 4, right?
Not really. It's
okay.
not the same character. That's for certain. But just like the way everything's choreographed, the way the fight works, it's the same fight to the point where like even dialogue is directly ripped, because like, you know, there's that cool moment where they're kind of first facing off, and he's like, "You don't want this fight," and he goes, "But I think I do." I'm like, I was like, okay, that's actually some cool dialogue. Then I watched it in the game. I'm like, no, that's actually really fucking good dialogue for an opening boss fight. Opening boss fight. It's like 30 minutes into the game, but whatever. It's one of those cinematic thoughty games.
Yes.
Yeah, but like that's one-to-one. It's almost just pulling from that to the point where like even. Where like the villain is recovering in the middle of the fight kind of thing, like that's all just, it's pulling pretty directly from just the opening fight scene, which I don't know, it's definitely that kind of double-edged sword where I think a little bit of that is okay, you know, as your fan service, as your cool, but there comes a level where it's like, yeah, but like, why don't I just play the game again, you know?
Yeah. Why don't I just look at pictures of these characters?
Yeah, like, at a certain point, a reference only gets you so far, and it just kind of meanders into boring, or just meanders into just copycatism, which gets disappointing, because, like, I don't know, like I said, I was really excited for a God of War fan film, because I haven't been able to find any, and, you know, Your point in the script, I feel, is like something I really want to emphasize, because they're using his son. That feels like there's some kind of justification there for more of a story. Mm-hmm. And given how it ends, and given that there's an end credit scene and stuff, maybe they want to tell a more complex story, and this is just their way to kind of, you know, get it in front of people and have them get hype. But at the same time, I feel like there's a better way to do it without just aping the first boss fight from the fourth game.
Okay, so you mean this is mostly just a straight-up adaptation of that?
Not a straight-up adaptation, because again, it's Kratos fighting the first boss, but like it's so like diluted in reference that it might as well just be a recreation of it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's like a more popular example of that.
Yeah, are you talking about like from a studio or another fan?
Yeah, from like a studio that's like.
Well, I can tell you right now, Sin City, Robert Rodriguez's Sin City adaptation. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, he often would call it a translation instead of an adaptation, because there's like so many shots, you know, directly out of Frank Miller's original work, you know, to the point where he had Frank Miller on the project to make sure it translated exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think out of like from a studio, I think that's usually my go-to example of that.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think it's quite that level, because, I mean, there's still original stuff. The guy in the game doesn't have a scythe, which, I mean, again, to the credit here, the weapon play work was pretty cool with all the twirly and stuff, and, like, how he
the
got
twirling was nice.
Like, I like the shot where he, like, got the scythe right in front of the dude's throat. I thought that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. There's stuff to definitely like about it, but I feel one of the problems with doing this, where you're so closely referencing or aping this fight, is, you know, even Manos, you're 100% right. Just watching two guys fight can get really boring. So I watched the boss fight, and it's a really entertaining ass boss fight. Even as I'm not playing the game, because it's just so like he just fucking knocks on the dude's door, starts being a dick, and then just punches him across the goddamn across his front yard, basically, like over his house, and it's just like, okay, well shit, this just got real, and then it's just got a lot of like kind of dumb, punching action. At one point, Kratos like throws a mountain onto top of him, and he's like, okay, good, he's dead, and starts walking away. And the dude picks up the mountain and throws it back, and it's like, okay, that's really cool. And so you don't have the scale here to pull that off. So I have a feeling it's kind of a fan favorite fight from that game, and it is a great introduction to like the stakes and the level of threat in this new world. But to see it in this fan film, it can only be not as good. Like if it was the best possibly choreographed and shot and everything, which I think it's all very good, if it did all of that absolutely perfectly, the best it can ever be is not as good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because I'm just watching the footage over and over again. It's just, yeah, it's pretty shots. I mean, it just completely leaves me empty. Like, I have really no, like, emotional reaction when I see these characters. Mm-hmm. There's nothing about this 12 minutes that grabs me. And I've seen films that are half this long that grab me emotionally, or, have something thought-provoking. Mm-hmm. So it's not even, like, the amount of time that they have. It's just there's, like, like, man, like, you can spare some of us walking. You have 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't a 90-minute Roger Corman movie. You don't have to pad it out.
No, that's exactly how I felt too. I was just like, man, it's only 12 minutes, and you're spending a lot of this time getting to the damn title screen.
Yeah, like credits. Yeah, credits go quite a long time too.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. There's full credits and a proper like cinematic opening. So then what the meat of it all is this fight, and again, it's well choreographed. The actors are definitely, I can definitely tell the actors are stunt performers before they're actors. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. The actors aren't doing their own stunts. The stuntmen are doing their own acting.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because like they're doing a good job with everything. And I mean, God of War isn't exactly the most emotionally nuanced kind of performances in the world to deal with. It's me, Kratos, me angry, the gods will feel my wrath, which works in a game in a way that it might not in film or anything.
Well, that's the problem with, I don't know if I want to go into a further discussion here, but that's the problem with adapting video game to film, is because
when you're playing a game, you're emotionally with the character in a way you're not when you're watching a film.
Correct, because you're with the journey, with the character. You were literally there, joined with the character. In a film, it's not that. The setup is different. You're sitting back and watching the character go through things. And I think a lot of video game adaptations to film and TV haven't cracked that code yet. They haven't figured out how to adapt like stories from the video games and still have something meaningful for film. And that's where video game films are still lagging behind films based on comic books and novels. Hell, I've actually seen more. There's actually been better movies based on country songs than video games. But
and to add to that, the creator of God of War, because ever since the first game, there's been buzz in Hollywood. First game was out in 2005, by the way. There's been buzz in Hollywood of making a God of War film.
Yeah.
And the point he's kind of made in several interviews is that he doesn't think video game films work for a number of reasons, but one of them being that video games are so heavily inspired by cinema and how cinema works and adapting that to a game that when you go through and put it back through the pipeline to adapt the game to cinema, it's regurgitating things, and so something might feel really fresh and really cool and really awe-inspiring in a game, but that same kind of thing can feel really generic and just mundane in a modern movie.
That's a really great point.
And I think what I think is really interesting about that is the one thing that video games have tried to do, or video game films rather, have tried to do to try to like stand out, and this is in a lot of video game movies, is to try to have a moment or a scene or something that feels like you're playing the game. You know, we did that Uncharted fan film, and there's that moment where, you know, he jumps out the window and the camera angle changes to like a third person, and it's just like playing Uncharted. Yeah. There's kind of the infamous moment in the 2007 Doom movie where for like 3 minutes it goes into first person perspective.
Oh my god, that's 3 minutes? Oh.
I don't know how long, but it's a while.
Oh my god. I saw that in the trailer. It's like, fuck no, I ain't going to watch that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And that was actually the deal breaker for me. It's like, well, let me see what this is about. Oh, wow, that's in the movie? All right, no. It literally turned me off to the film. I did not want to see it after that.
Okay. And so then this, it tries to get that, like, that dramatic pullback of the God of War QuickTime events, and it adapts it to film fairly well, but at the same time, you could make an argument that it loses, that doing that works well in games because you need that time to react. You could almost put the little button icons up on screen in this fan film. You need that time to react when you're playing a game, but when you see it on film, as a God of War fan, it's kind of cool for me. But for you, did you feel like it kind of killed the pacing of the fight, and maybe you would have been more into the fight if it were a little more quickly paced than these like little brief pauses over and over again?
That didn't bother me so much. It's just, okay. I don't know, I guess felt the fighting just felt monotonous. I don't know, it just was just two guys fighting. I don't know, it just, the things they tried to do to break it up were at least I appreciated. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. There was just nothing. I do not feel anything.
I think that's fair. I do want to try to talk a little bit more positively about it for a few here before we get to wrapping up. One thing that I did think was done very well on, again, the filmmaking side is the color grading. I thought the colors looked all really vibrant and everything. And one thing that I thought was really cool in the color grading was the fact that the trees, this was obviously shot in a forest during fall, the trees, the leaves change color during the fight, which is kind of cool. They go from like that orangish, autumn hue to like this really kind of sickly pink. That was kind of neat to see, and it had a cool look to it. I don't know if it really signifies or represents anything from like deeper lore of the fourth game, but I thought it was a really neat trick, and it was done so subtly just in the background that it doesn't necessarily call your attention to it. It just kind of looks cool back there.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think this film is gorgeous looking. The camera angles are really nice. Yeah, it looks good.
Mm-hmm. I also like the integration of the CG. It wasn't overdone, but like, which I think is smart, because when they did go heavier on it, you could definitely tell it's obviously a CG effect, but it doesn't look like amateurish. It looks like, that's just naturally what you're capable of at this level. It felt very CW level television series, I guess, as far as the integration of those more heavier CGI effects.
Yeah, I would put it on level of like network visual effects. So I think it helped. I think it holds up very well.
Mm-hmm. I think they did a good job of just understanding their limitations, but still trying to show off something visually interesting. Also liked the prop work. The axe clearly looks like the axe in the fourth game, which is cool. It looks like it. It behaves like it, which was neat. And I will say you can tell that it's not a real axe, but not in a way where it looks cheap. It's just, yeah, that's not actual metal kind of thing. But I don't know, I kind of appreciate that they had enough confidence in their prop building that they didn't feel the need to switch it out for the stunt work,
Yeah.
And the same for the guy's scythe as well. Really, my only problem with like some of the visuals presented here is I did have to do a bit of a double take when the guy with the scythe was wearing boots, and like
yeah, the very obvious modern trend in his boots.
Yeah, and on some level I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're in the middle of the fucking woods. You probably don't want to be barefoot. The thing that got me about it though was just there's like a shot of his feet in the fight where you see like you said the tread on his boots, and so I was like, that's odd. I mean, you could maybe make an argument that it works. We don't know how much of a time skip there is here, and if he's literally the son of a god, I guess he could be alive in the modern day.
Went to the mall, bought some men's Dansko boots, and decided to go kill the son of Karakos.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. Maybe these are the gods of the modern day trying to attack Kratos' son. I don't fucking know. It was different. I just had to do a bit of a double take on that one. Did you have anything else visually you wanted to talk about?
Not really. It's very nice. The post-credit stinger is lovely. The way it's shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, I always feel bad when we're overly negative on a thing. Overall, I enjoyed this. I think its length was really helpful. To be honest, like you said, you got kind of bored with it, but we've had fan films even recently that like we were bored by, but they were like overly long too.
Yeah.
So you're bored for a lot longer. I think this like they knew, okay, we only want to show a fight scene, and so we don't want people to just like sit through a slog of that. So I mean, 12 minutes I think is a good choice pace lengthwise to put this at. So even if you're not super into it, you don't have to not be super into it for an hour to watch the whole thing. So that's worth something in my book.
I don't know. It's just, man, if you have 12 minutes and you're boring within 3 to 5 minutes, I don't know. It seems more difficult to me. Like, if you do like a 50-minute film, and you're kind of slugging along, yeah, I mean, you are kind of like endangering yourself and putting out a boring project. But when you got 12 minutes, you got 12 minutes. Let's go and shoot and get it all together there, and don't waste any time. You can't waste any time with 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I get that's definitely a fair point. Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and go on to ratings then. I'm really curious where you're landing on this.
Okay. Yeah, despite the fact that this looks gorgeous, I will say. All the sweeping shots are really nice. The forest looks gorgeous. The actors look pretty good. And of course that end post-credits stinger looks really nice. But I was rather bored by this script. The fight wasn't very interesting, and it was a long 12 minutes, so I'm gonna give it probably 1 out of 5 cool axes.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Manos hates video game characters. Let it be known. Yeah, for me, again, I didn't hate it or anything, but I was a little disappointed. There are things about it that are enjoyable. I don't think I'd necessarily recommend it to anyone unless they're just a super God of War fan. But hey, who knows? Maybe you'll be into this, maybe you won't. It's kind of funny to be reviewing this in History Month, since if you didn't know it was God of War, it almost would have no connection to History Month. But hey, we got it in there.
Isn't this so just like this time period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing about a lot of these like historical or sci-fi based ones. Just, what hasn't changed? The woods.
Yeah. Thank you, the woods.
Right. So yeah, all things considered, I didn't hate it. I do wish it'd been better. Maybe they're working on a sequel. Maybe that'll be an improvement. So I'm just gonna give it 2 out of 5 Omega symbol tattoos. Alrighty. Manos, what will we be talking about next time?
All right, we're going to shoot on over to the crazy 70s and 80s for The Confession of Fred Krueger.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did we do that one?
That one has been done on the show.
Oh, damn. Well, then we'll be doing a different one next week, right here on Geeky Gentlemen.
Alrighty. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Realist.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.